Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot for September 4th. So, on the upside, the good news is we all survived the first week of September. The downside is that the intensity of the fear has ratcheted up. So, we all want to be super mindful of that. And this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So on Monday, the polls started coming in that sort of after both conventions, right, to see how the two candidates were after the conventions wrapped up. So the first couple of days, 2 days, I guess, first day, actually, it looked like Biden had slipped by about 1 point. And the stress and the worry and the anxiety and the headlines saying Biden's losing and, Trump has hope. By Tuesday night, oh, surprise, surprise, when the rest of the polls came in, things had stabilized for Joe Biden and he was up sort of back to where he was before the conventions took place. That kind of like panic and fear-based reaction is a powerful emotion. And I want everyone to just remember to be really mindful of the power of strong energy, especially hate energy, fear energy, because it connects to our own sort of innate sense of security and safety. And when that's threatened, the emotions really ramp up, and you're sending that energy out, and it is amplifying the effect. So again, you'll want to be really careful and mindful about what you're taking in, frankly, and how much weight you give it, and that includes from mainstream media. They also have to fill up hours and hours of television. So just try to remember that you can breathe through some of this stuff. It's 60 whatever days. You can just breathe through and release that kind of energy, and don't focus on it and then really ramp up the energy. So that's the end of my comments about that kind of thing. So I thought, given kind of the insanity, if you will, of this week, it might be a good idea to find out what the heck is going on in Trump's fantasy world. So Biden has done a fabulous job sort of dogging him and correcting him, right in the moment or very close to it. And Trump's getting more scattered, and he still can't find what he's doing. He's sort of latched on to this law and order nonsense. And then Biden's campaign, rightly so, basically said, well, so listen, the pictures of, what's going to happen under a Biden presidency are all pictures of what's going on right now under a Trump presidency. So that was a really good, strong comeback, and I was pleased to see that. So I want to take a look at what's going on with Trump out in public, what's going on with him behind the scenes. So come on down, I have a question. Just give these a couple of good shuffles. Alrighty. Trump's current state. Back a little bit, create a bit more room here. Okay. So this is the thing. Right now, Trump is literally looking away from the law, and it doesn't matter almost what arena you're talking about, whether it is foreign help with the election, he's all good with that. He had Homeland Security, I think that was the department, or the Intel committee, the Intel agency, maybe that was it. But in any case, in July, there was absolutely very, very, very strong, I guess they said with high confidence, proof that Russia was literally campaigning to talk about how weak Joe Biden is, and his health isn't good, and he's not strong. And like, if you've listened to Trump at all in the last couple of weeks, although I know that's a painful experience, um, that's exactly one of his go-tos, right? Oh, Biden is weak, he's not strong, he's not good, he's not that. And so he's literally following the Russian playbook. And so blatantly, like verbatim, okay, like it's craziness. Um, he's also looking away from the law when it comes to some of the stuff that is rolling out of that mouth of his that will just not stop flapping. The latest one I heard, like yesterday, was all about he's going to cut funding to Portland because, they're not, um, you know, they don't have everything under control. And frankly, read between the lines, it's you're not supporting me enough. And so I'm going to cut your funding. I'm actually pretty sure that that's absolutely illegal. But the point is that he says it and he triggers a reaction. And on the one hand, people who don't want Trump in office, their reaction is fear-based. It is like, oh my God, what's he doing now? He's destroying the country, right? For his supporters, they're like, rah, rah, this is awesome. Okay? So understand, it almost doesn't matter what he says or does specifically. The fact remains is that those energies, those volatile energies around him are ramping up. And in some ways, it's not hurting him. When you say, well, for God's sakes, how can that be? Like, the crazier he sounds, the more insane he sounds. Um, you know, how could that possibly be good for him? Well, I'll tell you how. Because I'm not talking about the words that come out of his mouth as much as I am talking about the emotions he creates in others, the fears he triggers, those hidden worries. That's what he is triggering. And I want all of you to keep very clear in your head the fact that um, that kind of energy has a great deal of force and power behind it. It takes hard work to keep positive energy pushing back on lower vibrational energy. So his messages are going to continue to be really scrambled. They're not going to make a lot of sense. He wants people in North Carolina to vote twice, right? He wants them to vote by mail, and then he wants to show up at the polls and vote again to double check the security of the voting system. I wonder what would happen if somebody said, but you realize, though, that then allows Democrats and independents who don't like you to vote twice too. Like, what comes out of his mouth is so asinine. It is so beyond the law. There are times already where he doesn't even string words together, never mind a cohesive sentence. It's not even a cohesive thought. So that's the kind of crazy that's going on. And what's happening behind the scenes as more stuff comes out, as more information comes out, as more of his deals come out, as he's not getting the wins the way he wants to, whether that is in the courts or whether that is in pushing Biden back or whether that is in the polls. So I did see a poll the other day, and I think they were talking about sort of the 10 battleground states. 8 of them, um, Biden had the lead. And now some leads, fairly, were 2 or 3 points, but some honestly were like 10, 11 points ahead of Trump. Trump was leading into Texas, by one measly point. And I think it was Ohio. He was leading by 5. So stay on the bright side, because you can bet that as Trump gets this volatile news, the news that things are really, really not going well for him, his little trip to Kenosha was an absolute disaster, and especially with Biden going there yesterday and acting actually, like a president should, like a leader should. All of this stuff is really riling Trump up. And he's reacting in typical Trump fashion, which is to blame everybody else and to sink deeper and deeper into the fantasy world he lives in. So you're going to hear how great he's doing and how horrible Biden is, and you're going to hear these insane things coming out of his mouth, like vote twice, or I can just cut off funding because really I don't think your state likes me enough. It doesn't stop with this guy. Apparently, I just heard a little bit apparently, but he wants the Justice Department, so William Barr, to start identifying protesters who are not literally on his side of the ledger, and following up and making sure that they're not considered domestic terrorists. He says this as the KKK and QAnon and whatever else is out there supporting him loudly. So that's where you're at. You've got this real sense of him where he is just starting to come frantically unglued. I don't really know how else to explain it. It is just a sense of everywhere he looks, he's not getting good news. And so he's yelling and screaming at people around him. And frankly, by extension, so are governors and leaders in Republican strongholds for Trump. They're also kind of out on the crazy limb already. He feels very strongly that when people make a decision, it's going to be a very, very heavy lift. He's being told that quietly behind the scenes. And he doesn't see, honestly, sort of a way to lift himself up, kind of literally out of the corner he has painted himself into with I could say lies, because of course it's always a lie. If his mouth is flapping, he's lying. But it's the level of crazy. It's the level of desperate. It's the level of just sad to see a human being, any human being, um, deteriorate that rapidly, and the people around him stand back and don't in any way try to minimize some of the damage, because clearly it's to their advantage if they sort of let him go up in smoke. He's really worried about the law coming after him. He's really worried about lawsuits that are happening. He's starting to get a little desperate about trying to figure out how to hold on to what's his. So you're going to see this ramped up volatility. And you have to remember, this is the thing you have to remember. When it comes to Trump, he backs down when there is pushback. He just does. So one of the things that I would like to remind you amazing, strong, and exhausted Americans is that when you hear things that Trump is doing that is so crazy, that is when you get on the phone, that is when you start texting out messages, and you contact your government officials. And if you're a Republican, if your official is a Republican, ask them just when the hell they're going to grow a spine. And if it's Democrat, why aren't you making more noise about this? Okay, because as soon as there is pushback, he backs down. The trouble is at this point, and this is part of what saves him, this is part of his strategy, that um, the more he ramps up sort of everybody's emotions, the better it seems to work for him, right? And so the stuff coming out of his mouth in the next 60 days is going to be beyond insanity. And so it's really, really important that everybody remembers you have to push back against this guy, because that tends to cause him to back up, retreat. I also want you to be really aware. Okay, I'm just wondering where that was. Okay, we're going to put these three together, but I'm going to finish the thought that I was looking for. Okay, all right. Um, all right, well, I lost my train of thought. So I know it'll come back because that's typically what happens. So I was distracted kind of by these cards and the thought flew out of my head. So if you've been watching the cards, the Queen of Swords showed up a couple of cards ago and I was setting it aside because it wasn't telling me enough of the story to make a statement. I'll say it that way. Then along comes the Ace of Swords. So as we know, this is Biden and Harris. These right now are my cards for them. So what it's showing is that they are working very hard to get him to leave because they want to restore something, frankly, that Americans recognize as their country. And Trump becomes more and more paranoid because it's working, right? They're gaining strength. He's losing ground. And just because he says he isn't losing ground, that doesn't mean he's not. Just because, um, people feel like what he's doing is so insane that the country is falling apart, and then those energies get ramped up, and again they play into him. He sucks in fear energy like a vampire sucks blood. Okay, because for Trump it doesn't matter if it is good energy or positive energy, he just wants the energy. He really is like that child who is, it doesn't really matter if he's good or bad. They don't care. They just want the energy, the attention, that kind of thing. And so for Trump, you have to realize that when emotions get sort of amplified and they get to the extremes, he feeds on that energy and that empowers him. And when it empowers him more and more, does he careen right out of control. So it's super important that, there is that sense of balance and restraint. Sometimes what's going on energetically reminds me very much about, I'm just moving these out of the way for a second, reminds me very much of, that same sort of human tendency to kind of rubberneck at a really bad car accident. It's like you don't want to be horrified, you don't want to be scared or upset, but you kind of almost like can't help yourself. And that is the energy that is so dangerous because frankly he feeds on it. He absolutely feeds on it. So be really mindful about that. I'm going to carry on. Let's take a closer look now, maybe at what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe we can get some information there. So there's a couple of a flood, in fact, of new books coming out in this week, next week, the week after. So there was The Girlfriend of Melania that came out. Another Michael Schmidt one came out called Donald Trump versus the United States. That looks very interesting. And there just continues to be the sort of onslaught of books coming out. And it's going to become harder and harder for them to keep on spinning and spinning and spinning, because too much information from behind the scenes is coming out too fast. And especially for some reason, there's stuff in the Melania book that is really going to cause some trouble. And I don't think it's because it's going to open up any new avenues of investigation, but I think what it has done is it has again alerted the campaign and the Trump family, I guess, that the walls are closing in on him, and the walls are closing in, frankly, on the whole bunch of you. There's a lot of her book, or some of her book apparently, deals with like the inauguration committee financial irregularities. She is the one that got thrown under the bus. So there's just going to be continual sort of tumbling of information coming out, and it's not going to look good. It's going to show that they were stockpiling money, they were padding their own pockets, and they really thought, I mean, I think when it comes right down to it, this is going to be one of the things that really, really stands out, is that for the Trump family, especially for Donald Trump, but for the Trump family, they are used to people backing down. They just are. The newspapers in the tabloid newspapers, I don't know to what extent New York newspapers or magazines, but there was always this sort of like really attentive, oh, we're going to do what you say. He made crazy phone calls into radio stations using a fake name, and everybody knew, but they listened to him. They put him on the air. They propagated the nonsense. So they live in this environment where there's fixers who run around fixing their problems, but they're just used to people backing down. And because they tend to surround themselves with people who really maybe are not that clever, that's the place that they're coming from. They really, really have no ability. They're not equipped to actually deal with people who are smart. They're just not, because they're so busy thinking that either one, they're smart, or two, they don't have to be, because people are scared of them and they're just going to do what they say anyways. And so what they're finding is there are now people in the inner circle who were smarter than them, who took contemporaneous notes, who built binders of receipts, whatever it was. And it's as if that sort of arrogance is really, really going to come back and cause some problems for them, because, people who were willing to stand by the Trumps, maybe when they were, looking like the golden family, when they were looking like they could be winners, whatever it was, maybe they just like the rich and powerful. I don't know. And I'm not all that sure he's rich and or powerful. However, maybe they just like to hang around those kind of people and that kind of energy. But this is the thing. As time has gone on, he has proved that he is mentally unfit. He has proved that he is intellectually and morally unfit. He locks babies in cages, and Melania apparently thinks it's fine because they're sleeping better now in a cage in America than they were wherever they came from with their parents. Excuse me, hello? The fact that he will we're almost going to be at 190,000 deaths. Oh my God. He has bankrupted the country financially, frankly, and morally. At some point, those people who are intelligent, they start to pull away. And maybe they publicly pull away, or maybe they just go silent, but they're losing support around them, and behind the scenes, it's creating a fear of loss. And because of that, there's no balance, there's extreme emotions. Trying to keep Donald Trump balanced behind the scenes, honestly, is like trying to keep a cork, a little piece of cork, probably, from a wine bottle, because I think a good number of us might have had a couple of extras in the last few years. But you take that little wine bottle cork and put it on a rolling ocean, okay? And that is literally, Trump is the cork, okay? And he's all over the place, back and forth, up and down, spinning around and around. And the people around him had just literally given up. I mean, I think that's part of what people need to remember going into the next 60 days. They have given up. They're all doing the let Trump be Trump, because it doesn't matter what we do. He's going to screw it up. He can't stick to script. He says stuff that is insane. He says stuff that is illegal. He says stuff that paints him as so unbelievably desperate and crazy that just let him go. So realize that that's a big part of what's going on behind the scenes now. It's people aren't trying to contain him in any way, shape, or form, which is how come day by day by day, the crazy ratchets up, because no one's trying to stop him, because everybody figured out already that he can't be controlled. He just can't be. So people have been asking about the debates. I think that there will be one. I think that after the first debate, Trump is going to come up with reasons to invalidate it. Probably he's going to say that the journalists that were asking the questions and handling the debate were not fair. They were biased against him. They, cut him off from talking, whatever it was. He's going to come up with reasons because, again, in a really public way, he's going to realize that he absolutely is so far out of his depth. And when he realized that with Hillary on the debate stages, he was able to bully and use that bombastic energy of his to sort of push back. He's not going to have that same kind of luck with Biden, and Pence certainly is not going to have any luck at all when it comes to his debate with Harris. So that's kind of going on. But like I'm saying, in the next 60 days, please try to keep yourself breathing and calm and really, really focusing on the hopeful aspect of this, because this is the thing. You have a choice in the next 60 days. You have a choice to either spend the next 60 days in a state of fear and anxiety and worry and stress, or you can spend the next 60 days in a state of positive, hopeful energy where you look every day for something that you can do to contribute to the Biden win. Maybe that's phoning your representative and telling them to start pushing back on Trump. Maybe that is a $5 donation. Maybe it is, making sure that you are registered, making sure that you are on those rolls, and that you have your mail-in ballot, and that if it's at all possible when you early vote, that you put your ballots not in the mail, but in those like drop-off boxes that you guys have down there. Whatever it is, you are going to serve yourselves so much better if you can figure out a way to really, really stay in that better, happier space. Because I just want you to remember this. Every time every single one of you gets afraid and worried, Oh, and somebody said something, and I need to run around and find 5 other people who are not saying the same thing so I can cancel that. Well, maybe don't listen to it in the first place, just saying. But always remember, he is a vampire, and he will suck your energy. He grows from it. He grows strong from it. And if your energy is fear, that's okay. He's really good with absorbing that. Okay? Because that energy vibration is at his level. It really is. I'm going to give you like a 30-second sort of little mini lesson here. Energy that is negative has a lower vibration, it's denser and it's heavier. Energy that is hopeful and lighter and brighter and loving and all of those positive emotions has a lighter energy. What happens when somebody has a high energy and they drop to the low energy, that which is around and hovering around that low energy is able to draw that energy. However, when somebody has a higher, brighter, lighter vibrational energy and they don't go low, the deal is that those at the lower vibrations are not able to come up and suck out that positive energy. They can only really attack the lower vibrations because that's the vibration they're functioning in. So think about that the next time you get worried or scared or upset. Realize that honestly, he's feeding on you. Keep that in mind, okay? Because it's going to get worse. You're going to hear the most insane things in the next 60 days. And at some point, you just have to go. Too crazy to worry about, too crazy to think about. I'm just going to continue staying in this space where I'm doing what I can to create the outcome that I'm looking for. And always remember, you are not pushing somebody out of the White House. You are preparing and welcoming somebody new into the White House. You need to stay in that positive space. Okay. And just really quickly, this Sunday's positive energy circle is going to be along that very same theme about pushing away the negative so that we can stand in a positive space and contribute the highest possible energy out into the world. So thank you so much for being here, for your support, the likes, the thumbs up, the comments, and quickly, if you're having trouble getting these videos, unsubscribe, resubscribe, re-hit the bell, okay? Because there's some wonky stuff going on. And so, I just don't want you to miss any of my videos because I really like having you here. Until next time, take care, be well, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.